Oh, good morning, everybody. This is just part of my collection of wargaming books, which I've gathered over the years. They cover pretty much from the turn of the century up until the present day. I've been showing some of the more modern books at a later date, but right now, what we have here, if I can start in chronological order, the two books you see here are first editions of the H.G. Wells Little Wars and Floor Games. These are essentially the two books that started all wargaming off. The Floor Games book actually came first. Now that did have a large section on essentially wargaming or battles with model soldiers, and on the front cover there you actually see the author's two children, a photograph taken for a newspaper at the time. This is I believe it's dated 1911. Quite amazing to think this was on a bookshelf in a bookshop somewhere 2 years before the Titanic sunk. It's full of quite charming little illustrations. As I say, this is the first edition. This is the author's set up using bricks and a model village, and it's got the rudimentary rules, and also it's got some information on how to construct the terrain. But as I say, the period drawings in themselves are very beautiful. He uses Zulus, Confederate infantry for one side, and British troops essentially for the other side. It's all Britain's range that was current at that time, including farm animals. And as I say, lovely, well, beautifully written story, and it reads like a good story, sort of describing the author's experiences of playing these early games with other famous authors. And the photographs are really quite clear. You've got Britain's Zulu warriors there in the foreground, and just a complete mishmash of figures. I mean, there's everybody in there. There's Confederates fighting with Zulus against British infantry, and French troops, and well constructed little town there. A marvellous way of very, very, very enthusiastic author for this subject. I mean, he's well known for his science fiction novels, War of the Worlds and all of these, but he clearly got a tremendous amount of pleasure out of these books. As I say, the book that came second, another first edition here, but the Little Wars, this is in slightly worse condition. There's actually a page missing, unfortunately, but very hard to get hold of the original copies. I've got a reprint of this facsimile. He does the famous Battle of Hook's Farm, which he lays out the terrain there, and again, the author's enthusiasm comes across very well. There's a picture in here somewhere of the author and his friends playing in his garden, down on his knees, and the original war game. And as I say, it's very, very lovely book to read and to possess. Again, the line drawings on each page, which are very pleasant to look at. It's not a big book, but there's got the 4.7-inch guns, which were available from Britain's right up to the very end. I had a couple of them myself. I've got them somewhere, but they were pretty much unchanged from the 1880s right the way through to the 1960s. And breech loading, fired a little projectile, which we probably wouldn't want to do today to our collections, but it was the way they did it then, and it's altogether a very charming book. Some very, very fine illustrations. I mean, coming as they did, these two books, just before the start of the First World War, you know, it obviously, people after the war weren't particularly interested in this sort of thing, you know, after what they'd gone through. But at this time, with the horrors of the First World War unknown, this was immensely popular. So this is the book that actually carries the more sort of comprehensive rules, which are still obviously very basic in comparison to what we know today. Some Britons, I think that's City Imperial Volunteers at the bottom there from the Boer War, and some Blues and Royals Lifeguards. Everyone mixed in, just a blue army and a red army. So that's it. The other book I was going to show you is one of my favourites. It's really what got me introduced into the hobby. Introduction to Battle Gaming by Terence Wise, very well known wargaming author. This dates from 1969, and the author at this stage exclusively uses Airfix figures, and he does some quite excellent recreations of battles from the ancient horse and musket and Second World War periods. He's using, as I say, essentially just Airfix figures, and it comes complete with, there's your Airfix American Civil War scene. And going to the Second World War, he constructs all the whole tabletop using Airfix accessories and Bologna, I believe it's Bologna accessories. And he's got some tips here for converting figures, converting Airfix figures into standard bearers, and British 19th century infantry. And also going back, some ancient figures converted from the Airfix Red Indians, and various other sets there that he's converted. Very, very nice book. As I say, it has very, very much got me on the road of the hobby when I was just about 10 years old, and got 3 sets of rules in here, very basic of course, but an ancient battle, I think it's Rome versus Carthage, and an American Civil War battle, and then Second World War battle at the very end. But altogether a very, very nice book. And if I move on, just to show you, you know, the classic book, Brigadier Young's Charge. That's a reprint. And an interesting one here, Joseph Moorschauser, War Games in Miniature, which has recently been reprinted, but it used a kind of sort of graph, a battle map with squares on it, and it was you know, a step up from obviously the earlier rules, and comes with some interesting illustrations. As I say, that uses a grid system, that's what I was trying to think of, and you know, again, quite a pleasant book. The 2 books here by F.E. Perry are 54mm. They're very much leading on from the earlier H.G. Wells books. using Britain's and Timpo figures, obviously the large scale. Very, again, fairly simple rules of all different periods, but nice. I mean, the charm is in the illustrations, really. And yeah, I mean, it was a lovely book to read. The Britain's Africa Core. A couple of other books. Charles Grant's Wargame book. I believe that's the 18th century. A book by a thriller writer, Gavin Lyle, Operation Warboard, using once again using essentially Airfix figures, and getting a little bit more, I would call, complex now, but still essentially a great read, even if you're not going to follow the rules. And finish off with Guide to Wargaming. That's one of the later ones. And as I say, I hope it's been of some interest. I'm no expert, but I just thought I'd show you, this collection. This book here is a series of articles that was published in, I believe it was Meccano magazine, and it's essentially Wargames rules for the Second World War. As I say, it originally came in Meccano magazine, and it was collected here, and it seemed to deal not exclusively but greatly with war on the Eastern Front between Germany and Russia, and using Airfix figures. And again, to my mind, my simple mind, it's getting on towards being a bit more complex. You boys probably, it's probably fairly simple, but it goes into great detail, and there's some conversions there of Airfix, the current Airfix kits of Russian infantry, and yeah, that's quite a good read again. So well, thank you very much, and I shall continue with an update on some more modern books. Thank you.